Hello, everybody. Howdy do. It's good to see you guys. I'm going to let everybody pop in. Really excited to have our fourth and final class. Today we're going to be talking about borders. And it's going to be a little crazy, so you just have to hang on for the ride. I'm coming to you from Levita, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains in a small little town. And I'm in my studio here. This is not my main studio. This is where I do my quilt retreats and workshops, and where our little empire of Ricky Timms Incorporated resides out of this little building. And so we do our shipping and warehousing from here. It's good to see you. Oh, good. We've got Celine from France. Why? Hey, it's good to see you. We've got California and France, a lot of people from a lot of different places watching today. I have been so excited seeing the progress of the quilts. Many of you post on the Quilt Show forum on thequiltshow.com, and I get to see your progress. OMG, it has been fantastic. So thank you, and continue to share all of that information. So you guys, as you're popping in, there's some things I want to do right on the front of this. I'm laughing now. They did give us a warning that the storm sirens were going to go off at 11 o'clock in Levita, and I hear that is exactly what they have just done. This is a test. Many of you know we had the big wildfire. Oh, goodness gracious, this is so funny. We had the big wildfire in 2018, and because of where we live, kind of in a valley, there is a significant threat of severe flooding. I mean, they're talking as much as 6 to 8 foot of water could come rushing into Levita. And so they put up these emergency warning sirens, and they've been really good to test them once a month. So that's what that's about. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. I'm going to jump into this. Now today, let me just tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you about some things that are coming up that I want you to know about. I'll do a little brief commercial. It's not going to take long. I will expand on that at the end, so you don't have to sit through it all. But if you want to learn more, I'll tell you about that at the end as well. And then I'm going to be on this presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, showing you some border options, and then I'm going to show you some quilt inspiration. So the other thing is, if you've got big questions, if you're stuck, or if you're wanting to share your ideas, I'm going to encourage you to do that in the Quilt Show forum. So let me share my screen and go right here. Okay, it says show. It shows that I'm sharing my screen. So I hope that I am. Let's go to the, oh, come on, screenshot, keynote. Here we go, play. And I do believe that you can see this now. So you guys, I know that a lot of you find us on Facebook or on YouTube, and you don't realize that there is an online television show. Some of you have not yet been able to watch. We are thequiltshow.com. The Kool Kaleidoscope class has been brought to you free of charge by thequiltshow.com. And on thequiltshow.com, if you go to the Learn section, this is where this class is located. We would love for you to be a star member. The star members are our subscribers, but you do not have to be a star member to access the Learn section. You just have to go there. If you would like to participate in the forum where you share your thoughts, your ideas, your comments, and images of your quilts, you do need to be at least a basic member and have a membership, which is just making an account. We have 2 levels, the free accounts and also the subscription star members. So please check that out, okay? That's where that will happen. And then I want to invite all of you to join me September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th for my virtual quilt luminarium. This is an interactive event. The 24 sessions are delivered over 3 days. You will watch those at your own convenience, in your own time zone, in your jammies. however you want to do it. And then I do have set times for some live Q&A, but you do not have to watch Quilt Luminarium. You don't have to watch this at the time I'm showing it, because I post the videos. You watch them at your convenience on any of those 3 days. This is 11 and a half hours of very, very rich information. So if you've never experienced Quilt Luminarium, please do this. I've got 2 membership levels, and if you go to letsquilttogether.com, which is the website there at the bottom, you can find all of the information. And I would love to do this. I teach quilting caveman style, convergence quilts, the music in my quilt, which is an amazing, wonderful comparison of art and music. I talk about the creative muse, the demons that prohibit us from succeeding, and talk about how to overcome those. Designing for quilters, color theory, dyeing fabrics. My Rhapsody quilts are covered, and you can design your own. Of course, the Kool Kaleidoscope that you're doing here is covered. Outline applique. There's so much more. I even have a class called 11 Cool Things That Every Quilter Should Know. And I talk about facing, bindings, piped bindings. It is a very, very comprehensive course. It's like a university of quilt information, and I would love to have you join me for that. So there's 24 sessions, 11 and a half hours over 3 days, and I do provide live Q&A. You just watch at your own convenience. So again, the website is letsquilttogether.com. That's my own teaching website. That's not part of the Quilt Show. It's my own personal teaching website. And then I'm giving you guys a private first time announcement. This has not been sent out to any email. This has not been posted on social media. You are getting the first invitation to join me for a new class. This is a beta class that I'm offering at 50% off called Finesse, Finish, and Photo. And that will be happening starting on September the 11th. There are 8 sessions that will run on various Saturdays and Wednesdays, not every Saturday and not every Wednesday, but between September the 11th and October 18th, the letsquilttogether.com. What I'm going to do in this class is share with you how to make a quilt top, make it right, make the borders right. Then we're going to get into the quilting, because I generally see people starting to fall apart with their borders, falling apart with their quilting, and then they put a binding on it that's not necessarily great. Or if they do all of those things great, they take a really lousy photo. And I'm going to talk about how to do all of this from the start to the end. This is like a miniature quilt retreat where I will work with every student one-on-one in the comments. I will write down the comments for everybody. It's very interactive. You will be working with me directly, and we will be sharing all of this as a class. So again, this is at letsquilttogether.com, and I am offering a beta class to you guys today, 50% off. You can join today. The class will start September the 11th. You will make a quilt from start to finish, and you will get the personal direction and comments. So please go to letsquilttogether.com. Okay, I know those were little commercials I wanted to tell you about, but for most of you, this is where you are. You have put together your quilt top kaleidoscope with the wedgies and the butts. And this is what it should look like at this point. If you've used an 18-inch square, your quilt should now measure 36 inches finished, which should be 36 and a half inches unfinished. That would be the goal if you've been accurate. Now, I want to show you how I go about drafting my borders. I just want to tell you the borders are going to make such a huge difference, and I am not going to tell you the formula for your border. You may spend more time on your border than you spent on your quilt. That is possible. But let's take a look. You know that we have the upper left quadrant would be an 18-inch square. We know this because that's what we started with. The white rectangle that you see up at the top is a piece of paper. I don't know how wide I've cut it. Let's say I want an 8-inch border or a 7-inch border. Well, then you're going to cut your paper 7 inches or 8 inches tall, and you will cut it longer than 18 inches. For example, there is 18 inches right there, and you see that I've made it go much farther on the left than just 18 inches because I plan to do a miter on this. So I'm going to start by knowing all I need to do is half of a border, because half of a pattern can be enough to make a full top border. I'm going to mark the 18-inch dot on that piece of paper, which would be the corner. And also, please remember, I am showing you this in finished measurements. So your quilt may measure 36.5, but you need to avoid the mental recognition of that 1/2 inch. Let's think in terms of finished sizes. So if I draw 18 inches and make a dot, and I use my 45 degree, I can draw a line that will be a miter, and that will then be the template. I'm going to have to cut off what I don't need, and that becomes the template for the upper left portion of my border, keeping in mind that we're going to also now perhaps put an inner border. I will tell you, I'm not always a fan of inner borders, but on this particular quilt, I'm a huge fan of the inner border. And I would not make this an arbitrary measurement. I would make it, personally, I would make it about 1.5 inches. If you wanted it slightly smaller, make it 1 inch and draw a 1-inch line. If you want 1.5, or if you want 2, you draw your line to represent whatever border you want. The reason that I suggest that you make this an actual measurement is because you don't need a template for it if you do. If you end up choosing to have an inner border of 1.5 inches, then you would cut a 2-inch strip and continue to use your 1/4 inch seam allowances. So let's imagine that this little narrow inner border is 1.5 inches, and at some point I'm going to cut a nice long 2-inch wide strip that will completely go all the way across the top of the quilt. But what remains is that upper portion, and we need that for templates. Now in my quilt, I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment, if I can get there, exit. And I want to talk to you about this. So let me get back to my eCam. There we are. You guys can see me. There I am. I want to talk about this. On this quilt, you can see where I've got my wedgie, and I've continued this angle out into the quilt. You can also see that on this quilt, I've actually used some blue fabric here, and I feel like that's because I ran out of this fabric. I didn't have enough for all 4 sides to go all the way out, so I ended up putting a piece of fabric on top. That's just a little different than what I'm going to teach you, but if you want to continue this out in that particular way, this is how I go about doing that. So let me go back to here, and I will show you that I literally take a wedge and wedgie, and I put it next to my paper, and I continue drawing that line. So if you're using your original templates, a wedge and a wedgie, and you put that wedge and wedgie right on that paper, you can then continue that line to create those 2 templates. Now for this border, this is a simple border, very simple, effective border. I need my 2-inch strip, which is going to be my inner frame, and I'm going to place this on the fold to cut my kind of chevron or my Crusader's cross type shape. That gold piece is kind of an odd shaped diamond, but that will be put together, and that border will then look like this. So I would sew the gold onto the batik brown on both sides. Then I would sew on that 2-inch dark strip, and all of that would be one border. I'm not going to put my 2-inch strip on as a border and then put on another border. I'm going to create them all as one border. And if you cut your 2-inch strip long enough, you would end up sewing your outer border to the thin border and then just trim off the 45-degree angle. You do not have to measure that inner border. It can be longer, and then just trim it off. And when you make 4 of those, all right, you just put them all on each side, miter the corners, and this is the kind of design that you get from that. All right? I think that will make total sense. Just remember, we're making one big border to put on the quilt. I'm not going to put on a thin border and then put on another border. You could, but I think this method is more accurate overall. All right, now let's take this a little bit further. All right, I'm going to give you just a chance to look at that so you can see how that's going to fit. Let's go back to this same template where I have the same 1.5-inch frame. I'll call it the inner border. And on that outer area, I'm not going to try to bring out any lines from the middle. I'm going to do something that is more similar to what we did for the wedges. And I might be able to use some of my leftover strata. I might need to make some more strata, and I might use some plain fabrics. In this case, I'm going to first draw my lines. There's the second line, and notice that it's not going to a point. It's just going to go bumping into the previous line. Here's a third one. Here's a fourth one. And here's another one. Now I've got the same kind of templates that you had for your strata. And I would then put them face to face, right sides together, lock the seams just as we did before, and you can then cut out, what you see on the screen now is 1, but you really cut out 2. Here's another 1, but you really cut out 2. Here's another one. You see 1, but you now know that you would have layered them face to face, and you would have cut out 2 identical strips. As we continue putting those together, that's how they're cut out. But remember, please remember, you would sew them together the opposite way. So you would start with the 2 on the left, and then add the third one, which is kind of moving to the right. You would add the fourth one, which is more to the right, the fifth one, which is down at the bottom, and the sixth one, which is right at the center. And you would do the same thing to the other side, and then you would join those together and then put on your skinny strip again. And you can cut a long strip, sew it on, and then trim it off on the 45-degree angle. Look at that. That is so exciting. And if you did that, now that's going to take you some time, but sometimes it's the pizzazz that is more important than the time. And you put all 4 of those on the quilt, and look how exciting that can be. I think it is fabulous. Now, I've got several things that I want to show you that came from my book, several quilts that are in my book. I have to apologize. I pulled these images. I went to my book to pull the credits, and I could not find my book. I have moved, and I went to my library, and my Kool Kaleidoscope book was not there. So I have the images. This one's mine. This is the one you've been seeing behind me. And before I go today, I do want to tell you a little bit about quilting these. This is a really good use of some of the leftover strata, and notice that the entire border was not made out of the leftovers. Only a part of it was. And again, apologies that I do not have the credits on this because I could not find my book. This quilt is fabulous. Look at that border made with all of those strata and put together the same. I think it's beautiful. I'm just giving you guys a chance to study it before I move on. And notice that this one had purple all the way around the wedgies and butts. It did not have a two-tone wedgie and butt difference. This is one of mine where I did use some leftover strata, but I didn't take it all the way to the corner. And I used that same kind of principle to bring out those 30-degree angles. And this quilt, I will tell you, the quilts that are in my book and the quilts that are in my DVD, because I do have a DVD and it's a different set of student quilts, those were selected for their borders. The borders are really interesting, the interesting treatment. So look at how fun this quilt turned out. It's like it's floating in space with all of these wonderful, wonderful spikes. I get so excited with your creativity, and now you've got your main kaleidoscope. What you do to it is going to make all the difference in the world. Now, this entire kaleidoscope is a different process than the one I taught you, but look at this wonderful, wonderful quilt. I really love the way those blue spikes look like they're tucking under those black loops. Really, really clever use of the fabric. This quilt, I want to linger on this a moment because all of us have been essentially making a wall quilt. This is a king-size quilt. It has one kaleidoscope in the center, and then there were 4 more kaleidoscopes made, but one of the sections was left out. So on the upper left, there's 3 of the 4. On the upper right, there's 3 of the 4. And at the bottom, so this is all made out of those square units once they're all sewn together, but each of those 4 outer kaleidoscopes are just missing one of their quarters and this main kaleidoscope put in the center. That's got to give you some crazy, wonderful inspiration. Is that not fabulous? I think it's fabulous. And here's one that was used as a center medallion for a sampler quilt. So there's a way to feature it in a different way. This also became a large quilt. So just even though I've made essentially a quilt that might be 48 or 50 inches time you put borders on it, you can go bigger if you become creative. And remember, I'm offering in the future, I don't know when yet, I'll keep you all informed, that I am going to do a showcase where all of the finished quilts will be submitted, and we're going to have fun looking at what everybody did. Yeah, Kathy, I'm with you. Seeing how to make this in a bedside quilt, that's just a bed-size quilt, that's just wonderful. Look at this fun border. So it's made with strata. I have a feeling this artist made several sets of the same strata so that when those triangles got cut out, you see the flow of the blacks and the grays and the reds, and it just looks fabulous. So these are all, and you know what? Go on to Google and put in Ricky Tim's Kool Kaleidoscope, pull up images, and you're going to find even more borders than these that I'm showing you. Wow, look at this one. It's just all exploding stripes. There is no frame. This is extra large wedgies and butts, but there's no actual frame on this one. I thought that turned out really stunning. It just looks like an explosion. All right, you guys. So as I finish this up today, I just want to remind you that this is brought to you by thequiltshow.com. This was a free class offered to you by thequiltshow.com. We would love for you to subscribe at www.thequiltshow.com, and you can find this class anytime you need it under the Learn section. And you don't need to be a member to see it, but if you're going to participate in the forum, you do need to be a member. So we would invite you to be a part of our family. We would love that. Also, just as a reminder, I'm doing my Quilt Luminarium on September 2nd through the 4th. You can find it at letsquilttogether.com, and I will be teaching all of these different courses plus more. It is a huge, comprehensive, almost like a university class for quilters. And if you've enjoyed Kool Kaleidoscope, I know that you're going to love Quilt Luminarium. There are 24 sessions, 11 and a half hours over 3 days. You watch this at your own convenience. So you don't have to tune in at a particular time except for the questions and answers. So again, letsquilttogether.com. And last but not least, I really hope you'll take advantage of my brand new class. This is Finesse, Finish, and Photo. And this is going to run over the course of about 5.5 to 6 weeks in September and October. And there will be 8 sessions. You will make a quilt from start to finish at letsquilttogether.com. And you are going to get personal direction and comments. This is like a private quilt retreat with me. And because it's the beta class, I'm offering it at 50% off. You were the first people to hear about this. It will sell out. This will definitely be a sellout class, and you need to get there today and get registered, and that way you'll assure your spot. The space is limited because I cannot give personal instruction to 1,100 people, and that is exactly how many people started this Kool Kaleidoscope with me. So there's a lot of you out there. I'm going to encourage you to come and join me for this wonderful class. Again, at letsquilttogether.com. That's my own personal teaching website. You guys are amazing. I am so excited to see what you are going to do with your kaleidoscope. I can only encourage you to really study and think about what you want to do. Use some of your leftover strata, but you don't have to use all of it. You can bring in other fabrics. You can make more strata. You can make it simple. You can make it complex. There are so many quilts that are available. And as you post on the forum, post the pictures of your progress. Now, I promised that I would tell you a little bit about the quilting. So let me move my camera over. First of all, there are so many things that you can choose to do to make your own quilting. But for me, I wanted to do as much continuous quilting as I could. I did quilt on a domestic machine, so I am free motion quilting. But I would start like in the middle, and I just made a little star. I went star, star, just a little, following the seams, making a little star. And I know you can't see it, but then I would travel up the seam, and then I would go like a spider web. I crossed over 2 seams, I swooped in, and when I got back to here, I made a little teardrop, and I did another one, and a teardrop down, swoop up, come over, a teardrop down, come up. I'm using my seams as my guide for quilting. And you might be able to see if I get really close here. I'll hope that you can see. If you look in the star, you will see how I just kind of did the same thing following the seams, all right? And you can see how that continued all the way out. Yes, it got more complex because I had more to remember when I got to the outside area, but I've seen people do feathers. I do like the symmetry of the quilting on this because the quilt is symmetrical. Just seeing kind of an overall randomness that didn't quite feel good to me. But you'll find the best thing to do for you. And I've really enjoyed watching this with you guys. I'm honored. I'm so honored by so many of the comments that have been coming into the forum. And I also am impressed with the quilts that are coming in. I think I want to say this too. I still see the comments of like, I'm not sure about this, or I wish I might have done this a little differently, or I wish I could have planned it a little bit better. I don't get a lot of that, but when I see it, I go, you're missing the point. This quilt is supposed to be magic that unfolds. And if your little starburst doesn't starburst just the way you wanted, well, it's just the way it turned out, and that's okay. I think they all look great. I have yet to see one in the forum that I go, well, it could have been a little better. They could have chosen some different fabrics. It's just not how I think about it. I want to celebrate your accomplishment. And especially when you're doing something for the very first time, let it flow. And if there's something you learn that you might want to do differently, you can do that on the next one, because many of you are already addicted and ready to give it another try, right? So I'm going to say goodbye today. I knew today would be a simple, sweet, short lesson. I think that your borders are going to be amazing. I will find a time. You guys stay busy, because I'm thinking it's probably going to be, I don't know, the end of September or early October, where we will do a showcase, and you'll have time to get your borders done, get your quilt quilted, and get it bind. If you are wanting to work with me on my new class, the one I just told you about, this top would be a good top to do, or do a different one. Or if you were in my Gridified class and you want to work on that, that would be perfect, because I want you to cross the finish line with finesse, finish, and then we're going to learn how to make photos so they don't look... You want to put your best foot forward, and that's what I want to teach. So you guys, I'm going to say God bless you. Thank you so much for an amazing course. You're inspiration for me, and I don't just say that. You inspire me every day. Thank you for being part of my family, my quilting family, and thank you for those of you that are on thequiltshow.com and being part of our family too. So God bless you, everybody. Love you very much.